Imagine this, you're having a whole bunch of friends over, and then once you finish having all those friends over, there's a bunch of food everywhere. It's like half eaten. All the containers are kind of like half eaten on the table. You just had a great Chinese food dig in. Your wife wasn't home, but she was at work, and she just got home, and she just ran upstairs and said, "Hey, I have to go to take a shower." And just as she does that, you're like, "You know what? I think my wife probably wants some food." And so you go into the Chinese food, and there's hardly anything but just crumbs, and you just scrape it out, um, and you give her to her in a big bowl, and it's just all kind of piled together, and you say, "Hey, babe, I got you all the leftovers. Here it is." That's not right, is it? If you're saying that's right, then we might have to talk about something else. But that's just not right. Those that you love and care for, you don't want to give them the scraps. But you see, when we live a life of not being generous, that's exactly how we treat God. That's exactly how we treat generosity, when we're like, well, the last thing I'm going to do is give. I'm going to get my coffee, I'm going to get my Amazon, I'm going to spend like crazy, I'm going to buy things that I probably can't afford, and at the end of the day, I'm going to check my bank account, see if I have enough to give, and what happens? Well, we don't give. So today we're going to talk about why giving matters and why we should give first. It's not that God needs your money, but let's get into this. When we're generous, it really reveals our heart. And I think that most people don't wake up in the morning thinking, I'm going to be ungenerous today. I think I'm just going to be grumpy. Well, maybe there are some people out there that are like that, but for the most part, none of us are like, today is going to be the day that we are going to be grumpy, ungenerous. I'm not holding doors open for anyone. I am not going to say thank you. I'm just not going to be kind to anyone today. No one gets up and does that. You see, what happens is life happens. And for money, you get paid, the bills come in, the hydro bill comes in, you buy things, all these things happen, and then you have no money left.
My kids are super loud.
You see, in this way, giving becomes emotional instead of intentional. And what we really need to do is we need to shift it from this emotional thing to intentionality. Because what happens is spending naturally expands. Giving generally doesn't naturally expand. It's actually difficult to give. And what happens is giving becomes more like occasional instead of worship. And when giving is worship, it becomes natural. When we come to a place where we realize what we're stewarding is not ours, and we are giving back to the Lord, then we realize, wow, the Lord has allowed me to keep all of this, and I'm going to give back 2%, so I get to keep 98%. That's crazy. See, I remember someone telling me that a farmer doesn't wait to the end of the season to count how much seeds he has. And because if he did that, then after he put all the seed in the ground, he'd have no more seed left. And if there was a drought or something like that, then there would be a really big problem. You see, what happens in the old days is the wise farmer would protect what was first. They would grab the first seeds off before they even fed anything to their animals. They would put aside a bunch of seed first before they gave it to the animals. If they decided to just give it all to the animals, then they'd have nothing left. And that's much like spending in our case. You see, when you give first, what happens is you actually are intentional about it. And it doesn't end up becoming an accident. And at the end of the month, you're not like, oh, here's $5. This is all I have. But you can be at the beginning of the month and say, here's $5. I am so glad I'm giving this. And I know that sounds weird because it's the same amount, but actually it's your mindset. When you're at the end of the month and you're like, I'm going to give this. You could be giving less at the beginning of the month But when your mindset is like, I'm going to be a joyful giver, that changes you. That changes your heart. That changes everything about giving. You see, in Proverbs says to honor the Lord with your heart and give the first fruits of your crops. What are the first fruits? Well, it's the first fruits. You don't give the last fruits. You don't give the tomatoes that are on the ground rotting. You give them the first fruits. And even when Cain brought his offering, he didn't give his first fruits to God, and we saw how he reprimanded him in that. But we are to give our best to the Lord, not our worst. And this happens for serving, this happens for time, this happens for our treasures. We give our best first, not last. The Israelites in the Old Testament, they would give their best calf, their unblemished calf first. They would pick out the prime calf in the herd and say, Lord, I trust you. I'm giving you my best, and so that I can see your glory, so I can see you work in my life. And it's the same thing with our money. When we are giving, give your best. It's saying, God, I trust you before I trust money. I trust you before I trust myself. And that's what real faith looks like. And I want you to hear this out. This isn't just about an amount. It's not. It's really not about an amount. It's about your heart change. You see, Jesus talked about money almost more than anything else. And why? Because money captures our hearts. Money drives us. Money is something that really can get a hold of us and can get between us. And we've seen all the bad movies where people will sacrifice their friends for money, but money grabs a hold of people, and it can be dangerous. But when we flip it around and we are generous with our money, that can also change you. What happens is giving reshapes our priorities. It reshapes who we are. It reshapes what we're chasing. We're chasing after the Lord. It reshapes our heart and it changes us. It's not about, our lives don't end up being about consumption. They don't end up being about what we can get. They don't end up being about comfort. They don't end up being about just impulsively buying things, but they end up being about being intentional with your money and what you can do with that. And actually, I think you'll see how much more generous you can actually be. Here's a step for this week. Decide to give before you do anything else. Top of your budget, decide to give. Figure out a number. You could make a reoccurring giving to a local charity. If you're part of a church, make that the first thing that you want to do. So do like a set amount, a reoccurring gift, an automatic withdrawal, anything like that, right at the beginning of the month. See, the amount matters less than the priority, because the priorities in general will actually change a person. When we prioritize things, our lives change. When you prioritize your family will be impacted by that. When you prioritize your health will be impacted by that. When you prioritize your giving, your stewardship and how you handle your money will be impacted by that. So that when you are going out and buying coffee or clothes or buying frivolous things, you are now seeing, you know what? This money could have gone to a different spot. This money could have helped this person or this family. And there's just something beautiful about being able to give in that way. And I want to end with this, and it might be a little bit heavy, but at the end of your life, no one is going to remember all the things you bought. They're not going to remember the laptop. They're not going to remember the car you have in the driveway. They're not going to remember your 401k. They're not going to remember anything. But they will remember how generous you were. They will remember how kind you were. And whether that's you being kind as in like serving others, or that is you being kind in generosity in how you handle your money. People generally aren't generous. But Jesus calls us to radical generosity. And so when giving comes first, it's not just going to change your wallet, it's going to change your life. It's going to change your heart. And it's just another aspect of us building this foundation for the 52 weeks of stewardship. So, as you move forward, challenge this week, top of the budget giving. Set an amount, set a percentage, whatever it is that is comfortable for you. And I'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.